the country to straight up tell you all a story that didn't even exist. If I want to own a damn rocket launcher to overtake the tyrant government, that's my business. If I want to own a bazooka because I feel that the government is out of control and we now need to go up against them, that is my right.
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
It's been nearly 6 months to a year since the nursing home scandal came out, and we finally saw King Cuomo for who he really is, a con artist, a fake, and a politician who would put lies and deceit and corruption ahead of the constituents that voted for him. But it wasn't until the hat trick sex scandals came out that finally the Democrats realized that they were pinned backs against the wall and they finally had to do something to get themselves out of trouble. And that is the real agenda that we face today. They're not all of a sudden upset at their boy. It's not like they woke up and had an epiphany one day and thought, wow, shame on Andrew for not being truthful and shame on him for his little office romances. That's not what's going on at all. The real agenda, the real reason that we're seeing King Cuomo plastered over every single media site and finally being raked through the coals is because the Democrats know that if they do not get rid of him, that they are finished once and for all. So finally, we now know that the Democrats, as usual, will do anything to maintain power, to maintain in a position of control, and even if it means eating their own. And that's exactly what they're doing right now with one of their boys right here in New York State, Andrew Cuomo. Let's over to Fox News today and take a look at what the American people think about the hidden agenda that's really going on here in New York State and why all of a sudden, after everything that Cuomo's done, we're finally trying to get this guy out of office. So we take a look today over at Fox News, and everybody's kind of wondering why it took so long to finally get to this stage. I mean, we have wanted Cuomo out of office for the last year now. He has over-abused his powers. His overreach has been criminal. He's put businesses out. He's colluded with the unions and kept the kids out of school. He's done everything but actually look out for the best interests of the American people, or at least his New York constituents. Even after he underreported these deaths by nearly 50%, it wasn't enough for the Democrats to really want to try him and ultimately impeach him. So finally something comes up that's worth impeachable, or that's an impeachable offense. Something comes up that the Democrats can no longer back and hide from. So this is now the story that we're going to run with to finally get him out of office. But it's too bad that it took killing tens of thousands of elderly and now 3 women coming forward to finally show Andrew Cuomo who he really is, which is a corrupt and criminal and negligent politician. And every media outlet in the world now is out for him. But it makes you wonder, how come the Democrats were okay with everything that he's done up until this point? Let's take a look. So breaking news, obviously, if you haven't heard, breaking news, New York Governor Cuomo apologizes for his past behavior following allegations of sexual harassment and inappropriate behavior by 3 women, telling reporters on Wednesday that he is embarrassed by his actions and will cooperate with the New York Attorney General's investigation of his conduct. Why now, Cuomo? Why now are you apologizing? You didn't apologize for any of the 20,000 elderly people that you negligently killed by sending them to nursing homes. You had nothing to say about all of the businesses that you've destroyed. You've had nothing to say about all the children who have committed suicide because of the pandemic and not being in school, and the trauma and the anxiety and the isolation that's been brought to these kids over the last year. You've had nothing to say about any of it. Why? It's because the Democrats never felt like they were going to lose control or power over it. But finally, 3 women come forward and we have a real case. Because sadly, even murder doesn't matter in America anymore. Sexual harassment seems to dominate the headlines, and rightly so. Because these women who were sexually harassed, they deserve to be heard. We deserve to know what happened. And if there was, in fact, sexual harassment cases here or charges, they need to be brought against Cuomo. And we deserve to give them their day in court. But what's interesting here is that it got to this point. And it's criminal that the Democrats did nothing up till right now. And let's not mistake their empathy for a party that genuinely cares, because we know they don't. The only reason that they are now letting the media have a spectacle out of Andrew Cuomo is because for the first time in a very long time, they are actually worried that they are going to lose control of New York State. That is the real reason. That is why we see Cuomo suddenly apologizing for his sexual harassment cases. And it's very sad that it took the Democrats this long to finally force Cuomo to come out and apologize. And it wasn't because they're sorry. It was because they got caught and they are finally in real jeopardy of losing control, real jeopardy of losing control of New York State. This is why suddenly they are making Cuomo apologize, and I still don't think that's the real reason. I think, to be honest, they are throwing him under the bus on purpose. They are throwing Cuomo to the wolves because it's either Cuomo or the Democratic Party. That's what's really going on here. The Democrats, as you can see, they don't really stick together after all. They only stick together when it benefits the Democrats. But the second that they feel like they're going to lose control of power or votes, they throw their own under the bus to save themselves. And that's exactly what's going on today. They, in fact, needed a very isolated issue. And what I mean by isolated is that they needed to isolate Cuomo away from the party itself. See, the nursing home scandal, we're not stupid. We know that there's no way Cuomo was going to actually pull off underreporting numbers without other members of the Democrats being involved. That was a team effort. We know that the Department of Health knew the numbers. There were several parties involved. De Blasio didn't really know what was going on. So we have Democrats also involved in the nursing home scandal. So what they're doing right now is they're using Cuomo as a distraction to the scandal itself, because Cuomo is now completely on his own. He's completely isolated from the party as a whole. So instead of the entire Democratic Party going down here in New York State and, God forbid, helping us to get a Republican governor in office once and for all, they're now not going to take that risk. They're going to isolate Cuomo, throw him to the wolves, throw him under the bus and let him fend for himself, hoping that we forget all about the nursing home scandal. It's an isolated event that they desperately needed to get themselves out of going down in general. Hence the reason we're only finally just seeing China report this scandal. And you better believe that the Democrats and the Chinese media coordinate efforts to suppress whatever they don't want getting out. It's already bad enough in America that the left-wing media continue to bury every corrupt and negligent and criminal incident that happens on the left. At least in America, we still have a little bit of freedom of press still available to us. And by a little bit, I mean we're hanging on a thread here. That's even in jeopardy. But in China, they have zero. It's a communist country. There is no freedom of speech. So when I saw Cuomo being reported in the Chinese media, I knew he was going down. I knew the Dems wanted him out. But why? Why all of a sudden, after everything Cuomo's done, do the Dems finally want him out? Over 3 allegations that we don't even know are true yet. No disrespect to the women. I'm sure they are. But we haven't even been through court yet. We haven't even heard Cuomo's side of the story. And trust me, I am not defending the guy. All I'm saying is that isn't it interesting that over a few allegations, the Democrats finally have had enough and throw him under the bus? It's because they know this is going to get the entire Democratic Party out of jail when it comes to the COVID-19 nursing home scandal. So this is their hidden agenda. This is what they're going for right now. And they're hoping that the liberals and all the Democrats here in New York State forget all about the coronavirus pandemic, forget all about what Cuomo did to kill businesses, prevent children from earning an education that they deserve, and from bankrupting the state. Because now, if they get their boy out, they can say, listen, we've got rid of him. We've eliminated the threat. You're in good hands now. And only fools are going to see this for what it really is, or not going to see this for what it really is. And it's a distraction to prevent the entire Democratic Party from going down. Let's over to the keyboard warrior cam and take a look at the comments and see if other Americans have similar thoughts as to I do in regards to this entire show being another Democratic distraction from the real picture that ultimately prevents them from all going down. Deborah says, all of a sudden, this is big news as compared to his nursing home deaths investigation. What BS. Nice way to get the spotlight off of that. Sad. What's happened to the nursing home investigation? We saw, and I did a live on this just a few days ago or last week, CNN tried to cover up for Cuomo. CNN, see, for those of you who haven't been paying attention, let me bring up the fact that CNN, Cuomo's boy, CNN already tried to bury this. They already tried to shift blame to OSHA, who regulates the health conditions here in New York State. They came out with a story that pinned the nursing home deaths on guidelines or federal guidelines or the Trump administration's guidelines. They tried to cover for Cuomo just a couple weeks ago, and they tried to shift the blame over to OSHA. And what they even did, which was even more sneaky, because that's what they do, they tried to talk about the deaths of the employees in the nursing homes themselves. So CNN is trying to completely cover for Cuomo. They tried to take or distract from the elderly dying to now talk about the employees dying. And then they tried to pin the employees' coronavirus deaths on OSHA. the governing regulating body for the health conditions here in New York State. That failed miserably. Remember, we've already had not one, not two, but 3 women come out against Cuomo. You'd think the Democrats would have cared on the first one. They didn't. So they didn't feel the need to get rid of him. You'd think they'd care after the second one. Still, nope. After the coronavirus nursing home scandal, after 2 women coming forward, it still wasn't enough. But after 3, after Cuomo nails the hat trick, they finally think, you know what? We got to get rid of this guy, not because he was wrong, not because we're sorry, but because we're all going to go down with him if we don't hurry up and throw him under the bus. And that's exactly what they've done. The Democrats failed, CNN failed, and finally, Cuomo is going to fail. Joe says, when are Democrats going to force him to resign or fire him? This is not okay, and they give their own predators a pass. He is still responsible for elderly deaths and should face jail time for lying. And that's exactly what needs to happen. But it's not, because they're going to throw him into some independent investigation, which we all know is a load of BS. It's being done by the New York's Attorney General. And we all know that New York State is run by Democrats. So I don't even know how you can have a completely independent investigation into the allegations of Andrew Cuomo as far as the sexual harassment charges are concerned. So we're leaving it up to an independent investigation to now interrogate Cuomo. We know nothing's going to happen. But the reason that the Democrats are letting this leak all over the media and finally letting Andrew Cuomo get exposed for the monster that he really is because they want to save their own ass now and their votes, and they want to maintain control. So we know it's not going to go as far as jail time, but they're certainly willing to finally let Cuomo go down and potentially be impeached. To be honest, impeachment's probably the best thing for the Democrats. Because, again, we're going to now focus on an impeachment over sexual harassment allegations, therefore distracting from what he really should be raked through the coals are and what the entire Democratic Party should be brought down for, and that is the nursing home deaths. Alfreda says he is being made to apologize. He is trying to save his job. This deflects from all the nursing home deaths. He sees no wrong in what he has done. He got on national TV and bragged about how he handled things, gave himself a raise, and wrote a book about it, Nursing Home Deaths. He thought himself untouchable. Any family friends who is around him knows that the inappropriate behavior, especially his family and friends should be ashamed of covering it all up this time. And they did. Look at Chris Cuomo over at CNN, constantly trying to cover this up. CNN themselves, your trusted news source. This is why you can't trust CNN for shit. Because they lie and they are fake news. They only tell the story that supports the left-wing narrative. And if it goes up against their ideologies or their far radical left progressive agenda, they will silence you. They will cancel you. And we've seen a lot of canceling these days. So they all should be ashamed of themselves. The entire party, everybody, both in New York State and federally, and CNN. And I hope the liberals start to see CNN for who they really are, because they've been trying to cover up for Cuomo this entire time. And I'm sure that all of these poor elderly people who died in the nursing homes were parents of both Democrats and Republicans. And I urge all of them to think about that come the next election, whether that be Cuomo, which I, to be honest, highly doubt at this point, or another Democratic candidate. Michelle says media would have insisted 24/7 a Republican governor resign immediately. That's absolutely right. They would have. They would have insisted that if it were a Republican governor, I mean, look what happened with Trump. Immediately they called for his head. They constantly attack Trump over every single little allegation. And we haven't even heard a peep out of them. The Democrats who went after Trump, attacked him 24/7, haven't said a single word about going after Cuomo. They've turned a blind eye. Yes, they've allowed him to be exposed finally. They probably at this point don't mind if he completely goes down in flames. But I haven't heard a peep out of Biden. I haven't heard a peep out of Psaki at any of her press conferences. I haven't heard a peep out of Chuck or Nancy. I haven't heard a peep out of anybody. Nobody wants to talk about it because they're not sorry. They're strategizing right now how to keep control. That is the only thing that they care about. You even had Mitch McConnell, the Republican Party. Mitch McConnell shamed Trump for days on national television, which I thought was completely unacceptable and inappropriate, but he did it. We have Republicans who voted to convict Trump, voted to move forward on the constitutionality of the insurrection case. They voted against their own president in their own party. At least they have, although I don't agree, the balls and the guts to call somebody out when they feel things aren't right. The Democrats, however, they won't even admit to this. And Trump didn't even do anything. Trump did nothing. Cuomo has underreported. He's been involved in scandals. He's now being prosecuted for 3 sexual harassment cases. And still, we hear nothing from the Democrats. So it's got to really seriously question or make you question their ethics and their morale. The tragedy in New York of the 15,000 seniors who died in nursing homes because of his reckless policies. This should be the media priority. It absolutely should be. But it's not. They continue to bury the truth. They continue to hide it. Bob says, what? So where's the apology to the families who lost loved ones, who died in all of those New York nursing homes? Governor Cuomo needs to step down or be impeached. I almost would like for Cuomo to ride out the rest of his sentence. I'll tell you why. Because it will expose the Democrats as well. See, we don't want Cuomo to go down in flames on his own. We need to find out if de Blasio was involved in the underreporting. We need to find out if the Department of Health in New York State was involved in the underreporting. We need to find out every single Democrat who colluded and coerced and fraudulently reporting these numbers. And they know that's what we're after. We don't care. That's the wrong word. We do care about these women who harassed. But we cannot be distracted by this one event. What we need to do is keep our finger on the pulse and continue our investigation after Cuomo and continue to look for other Democratic members who were involved in that scandal. And then they need to be exposed as well. And when that happens, you're finally going to have a handful of Democrats who are going to say, you know what? I'm not voting for this anymore. This was corruption. It was criminal. It was fraudulent. And now what we're going to see is Cuomo finally having a real risk of not being reelected. And that's what the Democrats know. And that is what they are now trying to avoid. Hence the reason they're opening the floodgates on the sexual harassment allegations. It's a distraction. It's a trap. And we cannot let them get away with it. We need to demand that our legislators and our district attorney continues to go after Cuomo for both these sexual harassment charges as well as the COVID nursing home scandal. David says, where is the Me Too movement? Where are the marches to the Capitol in Albany? Where are the protests? Doesn't make the Me Too movement look good with their silence right now. If this happened while governor, then he should step down. Where is Me Too right now? What happened to all the Me Too warriors that flooded America's media over Trump, over Harvey Weinstein, over other Hollywood celebrities? Where's the Me Too movement right now? Or was that nothing more than a trend? Was that just a trending hashtag that now nobody seems to care about? Because if you all remember, the Me Too movement lasted for months, and they attacked and slaughtered every single person who also had allegations brought forward to them. We don't even know if half of these men were convicted or not. Me Too didn't care. They were on a mission to make sure that if there was even a whiff of sexual harassment, they were coming after you. And they were going to make sure that you went down in flames and didn't stand a chance of rekindling. Similar to cancel culture. Exactly what cancel culture is doing right now. If you are in their path, they are going to do everything to annihilate everything that you stand for. Me Too did the same thing. I don't see the Me Too warriors right now coming after Cuomo when they were so vocal and so aggressive towards any Republican or conservative politician a few years ago. We saw it numerous times. So I am also very curious as to what happened to the Me Too movement and why we haven't seen any of these women fight against Cuomo as well. Who controls the Me Too movement? Is this another Black Lives Matter situation where the Democrats call the shots? You will protest at our beck and call, and when we tell you to stop, you're going to stop. Seems to be that way. Seems like the Democrats have control over cancel culture, Me Too, and BLM right now. They're too worried about using these movements and these trends for control, power, and votes than actually caring about you, the American people. And they prove it time and time again. And we're going to see it over the next 4 years. We're going to see cancel culture fade away until the election comes again in 2024. We're going to see, we already saw Me Too completely fade away. They'll bring that back, though, when they see fit. And we've seen BLM completely disappear. It's no longer BLM rioting, as you guys may have noticed. It's now Antifa continues to riot. But we haven't seen any black protests since Biden took office. It's completely died. And I don't see a flood of Democratic politicians racing to these burnt down cities either to start rebuilding them and bringing them back. I don't see any of that. I'm starting to wonder where the $1 billion in Black Lives Matter funding actually went. Because you'd think with all that money, these cities would have been rebuilt overnight. But they're not. So the Democrats have control over all of these movements. And they use them and deploy them every single time it suits their narrative. Or when they feel like they're in jeopardy of losing control. And that's exactly what we're now seeing once again with the Democrats distracting all of us from the real agenda here, which is the nursing home scandal. And they're doing it because they are worried that all Democrats are going to be pinned to the nursing home scandal, because they probably are, and that they're all going to go down together. And they can't have that. They can't have the Democratic Party exposed and all those lies and corruptions exposed to their voters, because God forbid they have enough of the BS and decide to finally vote Republican moving forward. Or Democrat per se, but maybe not vote the way that they want to control the vote in. So they're scared, they're freaking out. They were nowhere to be seen throughout the entire COVID scandal. And all of a sudden, Andrew Cuomo, because of a few sexual harassment allegations, well, he's now totally on his own. And it's their opportunity. They've smelt the blood in the water to finally throw Andrew on his own to the wolves, under the bus, isolate him from the party, let him go down in flames on his own. And that's what they intend on doing. John says, we are against this cancel culture run by the snowflakes and their hate agenda. We support Cuomo because we are Republican and stand against the tyranny of the libs. Did I get that right? Obviously, John's being very sarcastic, and it's actually the other way around. And it's a very humorous and ironic point, but it's very well said. Kevin said there's more attention towards his sexual misconduct than his incompetence that leads to thousands of deaths. Look, I can read comment after comment. Lynn says, why is he not being vilified by the media in the Me Too movement? It's just another classic example of Democrats controlling both the media and all the movements. It's like their little army that they implement only when it suits them or when they know they're going down. And they use these movements. They use and then abuse them time and time again, which blows my mind. I don't understand why people are okay with this. I don't understand why more people don't see it. Why don't they see this? Why don't they see the corruption for what it really is? It's just mind-blowing to me. Mary says, I did not touch anyone inappropriately. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. My, how this sounds so much alike. No truth to either one. And at one point, I waited for someone to come over and hand him a box of tissues. Cuomo is in a serious amount of trouble. The Democrats are now worried that he's going to be pinned to it. They're freaking out that finally the entire party is going to go down. And they're trying to isolate the event before he causes real damage and real cancer throughout everybody who is affiliated with him. Even CNN can't cover for him anymore. His brother, Chris Cuomo, was pulled off of covering anything Governor Cuomo related. Donald says, for every other state employee that is zero tolerance pending an investigation, you are sent home with or without pay. Is he not a state employee? Great comment. Why is he still there? Why does Cuomo get special privileges over? He's a state employee at the end of the day. That's all he is. He's hired and paid by the state. If this happened to anyone else, they would have been sent home without pay, pending an investigation, most likely fired on the spot, or at least within days later. But he's still in office. These politicians, for some reason, think they're monarchy. They're not kings or queens. They are voted by the people, and we seem to have forgotten that. Why aren't we calling for the immediate removal of Cuomo because of these allegations? The second he underreported the nursing home deaths, we should have sent him home without pay until the investigation was over. And we would have had the lieutenant governor take control as acting governor until the investigation was over. Why is that not happening right now? We still have the emergency powers to deal with. This man is dangerous. He's taken it continuously one step too far. And unless we don't fight back, nothing's going to happen. Well, finally the fight's going on, and it's only because, not because he's sorry, it's because the Democrats feel like they're going to lose control of New York State. So, again, they've isolated him, and they're now going to let him go out on his own to hopefully remove any accomplices from going down with him. Sam says he should resign, yes, but GOP not impeaching Trump for 10 crimes spelled out, and the Mueller report tells me all I need to know about the godless Republican Party. I think Sam here is basically, can't really tell what Sam's doing here, if he's slamming Trump or if he's defending the fact that Republicans, or attacking Republicans, that we should have gone after Cuomo like we let Democrats go after Trump. Who says not defending Cuomo, but why did the 3 women come forward the same week after the nursing home scandal? Why did they wait till now? To be very honest, I think these women came forward. I think they were just being ignored. I mean, look it. If you were the 3rd woman, would you have much faith that anybody was going to listen to you? The first one was made a mockery of. It was tossed to the curb, thrown to the side. The second woman now comes out against Cuomo. She too was kind of tossed to the curb, thrown to the side. Nobody believed her. So it took 3 women, finally, for the Democrats to say, whoa, wait a second. It looks like the floodgates have been opened now. And if it's 3, you better believe it's not just 3. If it's only 3 have come out so far, we can probably expect and assume that it's more like 10, 12, 15, because it's never just the number that actually comes out. There's usually a handful of women who are nervous, intimidated, scared, or feel threatened to come out against Cuomo. So it's only 3. It could be more. But I don't blame the 3rd one for waiting as long as she did, because nobody took the first 2 seriously. So finally, they all have now had the guts to come out against Cuomo. And now America and New York State is taking the situation very, very seriously. Catherine says, why would you apologize for something you said you didn't do? I'm glad he isn't dragging Sandra Lee into this. She is a nice woman he didn't deserve. Her point being, obviously you did it. Why would you even come out and apologize if you didn't? I mean, look what's going on with the Joe Biden and Hunter Biden situation. They've straight up denied everything. Not because I think Hunter's innocent, but because it's the better tactic, to be honest. They've completely ignored the entire situation. They are saying absolutely nothing. So there is, I mean, where do you even go from there? How do you even attack Hunter moving forward? He's not denying it. He's not admitting it. He's just straight up saying nothing. So Cuomo hasn't clearly followed that same blueprint, but he has come out and apologized. That leads me to believe there's some foul play here at hand that absolutely does need to be continued to be investigated. Darlene says, once the cat's out of the bag, of course he is embarrassed and sorry. But only because the bag is open, not the fact that the cat is out. A typical lying politician. And again, are they sorry for what they did? Or are they sorry because they got caught? It's like my mom used to tell me, you're not sorry for what you did. You're only sorry because you got caught when I tried to get out of being grounded. And she was right most of the time. I was only sorry because I got caught. Cuomo's not sorry because of what he actually did. He's sorry because he's about to lose control of New York State. We already won his emergency powers. Next is going to be impeachment. And after stripping him of his emergency powers, the left and the liberals aren't going to be so easy on him because they saw what just happened. They don't perceive him as this innocent, high and almighty God that they, for some weird reason, look up to him right now as. So we are putting a dent into the situation slowly, knocking him rightly so off of his pedestal. And the Democrats see that. The voters see that. In the mind of their eyes, he's not as innocent and likable anymore. And now it's scaring the hell out of Chuck and Nancy. So they've had to probably step in and say, you know what, Cuomo, you're on your own. You go deal with these sexual harassment charges on your own. We're going to let the media make a spectacle. We're going to encourage the media to make a spectacle out of the harassment allegations because we don't want any of you to remember or even think about what happened over there in the nursing home. China is even reporting on the sexual harassment allegations. Where was China reporting on the nursing home deaths? They weren't, because Chuck and Nancy didn't allow it. Biden didn't allow it. Not that Biden really has control over anything right now, but the people pulling the strings have allowed the sexual harassment charges to fly in China media, but they have not with the nursing home scandal. It just goes to show they want him isolated. It's the only way they're going to prevent the entire party from going down. Paul says, how fair do you think the New York Attorney General will be? She's a Democrat. Exactly. There's nothing independent about this investigation. The Attorney General is going to be investigating it. She's a Democrat who fakes fairness. So how is a Democrat who fakes fairness going after Republicans and specifically President Trump? So we know that they pick and choose their battles. We know that they're going to defend Cuomo while going after people, specifically Donald Trump in the past. So there's nothing independent about this investigation. There's nothing unbiased about this investigation. Linda says, sounded like he was using the old I'm Italian. That's what we do. So affectionate, we hug and kiss anyone that comes our way. Yeah, nice try, Cuomo. Well, be sure the person you're mauling is Italian too, because a lot of other nationalities aren't into that with strangers, and sometimes not even with friends and family. One person's friendly gesture is another person's unwanted physical contact. Exactly. Nice try. You can't play the old school Italian card here, where we all go up and kiss each other on the cheek and touch each other in ways that you would only ever do back in the 1950s with your family. And even if he thought that, like he thinks that's okay in 2021 in the workplace, clearly he knows it's not. So that is not going to be a good excuse for him to run with. You'd have to be an absolute idiot to think that he actually meant that. Gary says, so the women were wrong because they did not understand what he was doing. Asking about having sex with older men and playing strip poker is just normal banter. I guess women just can't understand his humor. So clearly this is sarcasm here. Gary's bringing up the fact that Cuomo said, oh, hey, you know, it was just jokes. It was just jokes. I was just joking about playing strip poker. It was just normal banter. Again, people, it's 2021. You can't be doing that in the workplace. You can barely even do it at home without a family member being offended today. Everybody's so scared of saying the wrong thing. But he knows more than anybody, Cuomo. Remember, he's supposed to know the workplace conduct, just like every other employee, whether you're government or not. And I'm sure he's been to a million sexual harassment courses. So there's no excuse. If anything, we do need to make an example out of Cuomo, because it's a very serious issue within the workplace today. And if we allow our own governor to do it, well, then you're opening carte blanche for any male or woman to sexually harass another sex, because we now let the governor do it. Bill Clinton got away with it, and look what happened there. Those were different times. We're now, 20 years later, We have stricter sexual harassment laws. The women have come out and said, we're not okay with this. It's not acceptable. And everybody, including the king, need to respect that. Jeff says, why would you need apologies if you didn't do anything wrong? But the mainstream media will eat this up and stop talking about it. Why? Because they don't care. Hashtag Me Too. Again, where is Me Too? Where have they been this entire time? Liberal hypocrisy at its best, but we're used to it. It's absolute insanity. It continues to go on today. And we've had enough, and we're finally exposing the whole madness for what it really is. DeWitt says at some point he'll be forced to admit and apologize for everything he has done to New Yorkers when the evidence becomes so overwhelming, waiting for his brother to save him on CNN. Well, his brother can't save him on CNN anymore because CNN has kicked Chris Cuomo off of reporting anything Governor Cuomo related. And when is he going to apologize for the businesses that he destroyed, for the children's lives that he ruined, for the teachers' lives that he ruined, for being in bed with the teachers' unions simply because of votes? When does he come out and apologize to everyone that has gone bankrupt, who's now on unemployment, who's now collecting welfare? When does he apologize for all that? And most importantly, when does he apologize to the sons and daughters and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles for killing their loved ones? When does he come out and apologize for any of that? Well, he hasn't. And you know why? Because the Democrats have told him not to. They've told him not to because it would make the entire party look weak. That's the Democrats' MO. Power, control, votes, and they will destroy and literally kill anyone in their path. They're a very vicious and mean bunch. And that's how they got to where they are today. Lying, stealing, cheating, and viciously attacking anybody who stands in their way to get to the top. And we continue to vote for this. It's absolute insanity, and I can't believe that we continue to fall for it. Due to the fact that most Democrats don't set the moral bar very high for themselves, he'll most likely get off with an apology. Isn't that sad? It's a great comment, Danielle. We just touched on it. Jose says, look at his face, all ashamed and humiliated. Nothing to do with the arrogant face he used to have when attacking President Trump. You deserve it, Cuomo. Your brother Chris to follow. We don't see that arrogance in him. 2 days he hasn't even been on live stream with his stupid little press conferences that not many people really cared about in the first place. It was just a brainwashing exercise that most of the left fell for. And now it's taking people like me and the rest of my conservative friends to kind of slap them in the face and say, would you wake up? Take off the mask. Let's get back to business. Forget your COVID check. And let's start hustling again. Get that injection out of your back or your arm, because God knows what they're poisoning you with. And let's get back to work. It's been a long, long time of constant brainwashing. But it's coming to an end. And finally, I think the Democrats are starting to see the king for who he really is. Whether he goes to jail or not, I do think this is going to hurt his party substantially. I think it's going to finally affect votes, and we may actually have a real shot here at a 2022 Republican candidate. John says his apology was BS. He said touching, hugging, kissing was his normal way of greeting people. And he even did it last week during a pandemic. You're hugging, touching, and kissing people during a pandemic. Okay. Either he's outright careless or a complete liar. I also agree we shouldn't lose focus on deaths in nursing homes. which involved more lies. So, John's right. This apology was total BS. Doesn't even look like Cuomo apologized at all. He said touching, hugging, kissing was his normal way of greeting people. That's not an apology. That's a scapegoat. He's using his heritage as a way to get out of the crime he committed. Well, again, it doesn't matter what your normal, traditional beliefs are, or the fact that you're just an old traditional Italian man where this is quite normal in your cultural. Well, again, it doesn't fly in the workplace, buddy. So Cuomo's toast. He's got 3 people now coming up against him, and the Democrats know they can't save him this time. Williams says that's not enough. He needs to be locked up. Tanya says, kind of makes you wonder who he has dirt on. Meaning, why has it come to this? Why are we tens of thousands of elderly dead later, underreporting numbers by 50%, not 1, not 2, but a hat trick of sexual harassment charges? Why does it come to all of this before finally exposing Cuomo for the incompetent and criminal governor that he is? Well, we know why. It's because the Democrats, for once, aren't going to be able to save themselves. They're getting raked through the coals with Cuomo as far as the nursing home scandal is concerned, and they finally needed a out. And the sexual harassment charges gave Cuomo this out. They are finally throwing their boy under a bus. They're throwing him to the curb, throwing him to the wolves. He's now got to defend for himself because this is the only thing that saves the Democratic Party from going down in flames with Cuomo. But don't be fooled, people. It's a distraction, it's a trap, and it's a setup. We got to keep our eye on the prize here, making sure that they all go down for the nursing home scandal. Thank you guys so much for joining me today here at You Made It Political. We stream live every single day at 3 p.m. at Facebook and YouTube. You'll also find us on Amazon Music, YouTube, or iTunes, Spotify, and TuneIn. Have a good night.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.